Food security is probably the biggest problem in Chipanje Chetu and the leading driver of deforestation. Chipanje Chetu has a very extreme climate where it's incredibly rainy in one half of the year and very dry in the other half of the year. So agriculture is limited to the rainy season months, and people don't have the ability to farm outside of that. In those dry months, they store as much food as they can. But typically, before the next harvest season arrives, people run out of food because the storage ability is limited. Maize is a little bit complex to store, and people struggle to farm enough produce to support them across the full year. So in those rainy season months, people get very hungry. They run out of maize, which is their staple food, and it causes all sorts of issues for the community and for their livelihoods.
Yani hapa kama upande wa njaa tutaanza huu mwezi wa 11 huu kwenda mbele.
At this time of year, if a household runs out of food and has no more maize left in their stores, they need to get transport to the nearest maize market, which can be 100 to 120 kilometers away, buy a sack of maize in that market and then transport it back to their household. And for some of our more northern communities, the cost just of the transport to buy the food costs as much, if not more, than the food itself, which makes the price of food per household, of a meal per household, really high and very difficult for community members to achieve. In some of the communities, the soil that they grow their staple foods in is really nutritionally poor. And as a result, the communities put in a huge amount of effort for a relatively low yield. And after just 2 or 3 years in one mashamba, they will need to go and look for new land to cultivate in to continue to keep their yields at a sufficiently high rate. And usually in that process of finding new fields, they are cutting down pristine forest just to grow additional maize. Just after the harvest season, when there's a lot of maize in the market, you can pick up a sack of maize for as low as 600 mets sometimes, to about 800 mets. During the mid-season, it's typically selling for about 1,000 mets for a bag of maize. And this year, because we've had such a bad harvest season due to Cyclone Freddy, people are currently buying maize in the market at 1,400 mets per bag. And in January, it will continue to go up. We don't even know how high it could go up. But with maize at 1,400, 1,500, 1,600 mets per bag, it's completely unaffordable to most households. This is a project that the community came to us and asked us to support them in. It was actually their idea. Last year, when we were trying to work out how we could work together to support livelihoods and to support them in their food security problems, committees asked us just to bring them maize that they could buy and to cut out transport. And that is where the seed of this project really started to grow. And it's turned into an enormous one this year that's going to support a lot of different households. As part of the Yambone project, we have got a maize distribution program, which is a true collaboration with a number of different stakeholders in the area. We use local entrepreneurs such as Mafekeng to purchase maize for us from community members just after the harvest season, and to prepare it and store it well in this warehouse, which we have refurbished specifically for the program. We store it here until people start to run low on their supply of maize in the communities, at which stage we start to work with the committees within each community to sell this maize for us to community members, usually by the tin, which is like about 15 kgs, and they sell that at a really reasonable price. So because we buy in the harvest season when the market is oversupplied and the market price of maize is typically quite low, we can sell that for no profit at the height of the hungry season, and it really supports people in their ability to procure enough maize to feed their children, feed their families until they harvest again. Right now it is almost November, which means people are just about depleted on their stores in the villages. The price of maize in the market is already 1,400 mets per bag and is going to continue to go up until March, where the first harvests start to come in. We have bought enough maize to support the communities through that hungry season and to make sure that there is enough maize in the communities to keep everybody fed.
Yeah, kwangu mimi naona vizuri ninapofanya kazi na wazungu hawa hapa, na nitaomba kwamba kama kuna kusaidiana kuhusu mambo lakini ya product tu kwa kazi ya lipilichi, mambo ya chakula, nyinyi kampani zako zote.
Within the next month, we will deliver about 100 tons of maize to committees to start to sell on to other community members. Providing an affordable maize market in some of the more remote villages reduces those communities' dependence on their own farming abilities to farm all of the food they need for the year. And it breaks the dependence on agriculture in such a way that people can reduce their efforts at expanding more and more mashambas just to survive. Secunda Congresso is an example of one of the villages that is most impacted by this dynamic and by this project. It's a village of almost 2,000 people at this point, and they're farming in an area of almost 52,000 hectares is the area that is available to them for farming. Although it's not block farmed, people are farming in quite a haphazard way, just seeking sufficient soil to support their lives. If left unchecked and with no support to a group of people like this, they will continue to expand outwards, particularly along the river systems, which are critical environmental areas, in search of new agricultural areas. And so a system that supports their ability to stay within their agricultural zone, such as this maize program, is really important. It's a project of real scale. It's a logistics project more than anything else. And it's a simple one where we don't make a profit or a loss, but just applying logistical efforts and taking advantage of the market, the maize market, we can really deliver a real benefit to households. The success of this project really rests on the ability to store product well and the condition of the roads. So we have put a lot of effort into trying to store our maize as well as possible this year to make sure that it stays in the best condition for as long as possible. But we are limited by local products. Sometimes it is difficult to find solutions to really hold maize in good condition over time, and to transport it sometimes in really rainy, muddy, dusty conditions as well. The sacks that are available to us right now to store food in is what is available in the local market. They do the trick, but often they break. They can't be used 2 years in a row, so there's a sustainability aspect to them and a quality aspect that does mean that food gets lost along the way. This project also needs more storage solutions within the communities. So right now we're using a warehouse just outside of the project area where we can access the communities easily. But ultimately over time I'd like to see each community having their own warehouse, and they could self-manage a program like this even without our assistance. But storage solutions that really protect maize well in extreme weather is critical to the success of this project. If I had a wish list to grow this project as far as it could go, I'd need a truck, maybe 2, with some really skilled truck drivers who could run the logistics gauntlet and make sure that we buy as much maize as possible at good prices, and that we get it into communities who need it early on in the season. It also rests very much on the governance capacity of the communities, who do all the groundwork themselves in making sure that maize is distributed fairly and that people pay for the product that they receive.